The first human to fly didn't die from falling. He died from breathing. He went up because he could, 4,000 meters straight up over a valley his grandfather had never left. And somewhere around 3,000, the air stopped being enough. Not gone, just thin. Thin enough that lungs built for a valley floor couldn't pull enough oxygen out of it. His vision narrowed, his arms went heavy, and then the strongest animal on Earth fell out of the sky, fully conscious, all the way down. Humans can fly. That's the only rule we're changing. Everything else stays exactly where it is. Physics, biology, history, human nature. Here's the first thing that breaks, and it breaks immediately. Flight doesn't scale. Weight goes up with the cube of your size. Wing area only goes up with the square, which means every time an animal gets bigger, it gains far more mass than it gains lift. There is a ceiling, and it's low. The heaviest birds alive that can still get off the ground under their own power top out around 20 kilograms. 20. That's a medium-sized dog. You weigh 70. To lift you, the numbers get absurd fast. You'd need a wingspan somewhere around 6 to 7 meters. Wider than a car is long, on both sides. The largest flying bird we've ever found was called Argentavis. It had roughly a 7-meter wingspan and weighed about 70 kilograms. And scientists still argue about whether it could genuinely flap its way into the air, or whether it needed a running start down a hillside, like a hang glider. Then there's the engine. In birds that fly by flapping, the flight muscles make up 15 to 25% of total body mass. A quarter of the animal is the motor. Your chest muscles are about 1% of you, and those muscles have to anchor to something. Birds have a keel, a blade of bone running down the front of the chest like the fin of a boat. It gives the muscle something to pull against. You don't have one. You'd need one. A ridge of bone sticking out from the center of your chest several inches deep, with an enormous slab of muscle wrapped around it on both sides. Put it together. 7-meter wings, a chest that's a quarter of your body, a bone blade down your sternum. You wouldn't look like a person with wings. You'd look like something that hunts people. And that's just the body. The body is the easy part. What happens after, to your daily life, to cities, to law, to war, to who gets to own the sky? That's where this stops being a superpower and starts being something much worse. Let's go. Say the anatomy works. Say evolution solved the wings, the keel, the muscle. You're still in serious trouble because flight is the most expensive thing an animal can do. Flapping flight costs roughly 10 to 15 times your resting metabolic rate. Sitting on the sofa, you burn around 1,600 calories a day. Flying, genuinely flying, you'd burn that in a few hours. Realistically, you'd need more than 6,000 calories a day, just to stay airborne for part of it. Birds solve this by eating almost constantly, and by having a completely different respiratory system. Their lungs don't work like ours. Ours are dead ends. Air goes in, air comes out the same way, and there's always stale air left behind. Birds run air in one direction through the lungs using a set of air sacs, so oxygen extraction happens on the inhale and the exhale. It's a fundamentally better design. It's why bar-headed geese can migrate over the Himalayas, at altitudes where an unprepared human loses consciousness. You'd need that too, which means air sacs threaded through your body cavity and into your bones. And then there's the cold. Air temperature drops about 6.5 degrees for every 1,000 meters you climb. A pleasant 20-degree day at ground level is below freezing at 3,000 meters, and you're moving through it fast, soaked in sweat, burning through water at a rate you can't replace mid-air. Flight isn't freedom. Flight is a machine that eats you. Now forget the biology for a second. Think about an ordinary Tuesday. You can't carry anything. This is the part nobody thinks about. Every extra kilogram costs you altitude, range, and stamina all at once. 10 kilos of shopping is not an inconvenience. It's the difference between flying and not flying. So the flying human owns almost nothing, carries almost nothing, and is permanently dependent on wherever the food is. You can't wear much either. Fabric is weight and drag, and you have 7 meters of joint and feather that need to move freely. So you're cold, mostly bare, and burning 6,000 calories a day. And you can't rest anywhere useful. Birds are built to perch. You're built to stand upright, with wings that don't fold small. Every roof, doorway, corridor, and vehicle humans have ever built assumes one thing: a creature roughly 2 meters tall and half a meter wide. You are now 4 meters wide. Here's where it stops being about you. Every property system on Earth is drawn on a flat map. A boundary is a line on the ground. And the assumption underneath it is that people arrive horizontally. Walls, fences, gates, doors, borders, locks, all of it exists because humans approach from the side. We know exactly what happens to that assumption when flight arrives, because it already happened. For centuries, English law ran on a simple idea. Whoever owns the soil owns it all the way up to the heavens. Then aeroplanes were invented. And that idea became instantly unworkable, because every commercial flight would have been trespassing across thousands of properties. In 1946, the U.S. Supreme Court took the case of a farmer named Thomas Lee Cosby. His chickens were killing themselves flying into walls, because military aircraft were passing low over his land. The court ruled that landowners don't own unlimited airspace, only the immediate reaches above the ground. That single case redrew the vertical dimension of property law for the modern world, and that was for machines, on fixed routes, with licenses and flight plans. Now imagine every human being is the airplane. Roofs become the front door. Windows become ground floor windows. Cities that spread outward would build upward and inward instead. Enclosed, roofed, netted, not to keep weather out, to keep people out. And now the part that decides everything. Here's the historical pattern. Every time a group of humans gained a mobility advantage over everyone else, that group became an aristocracy. Chariot elites in the Bronze Age, steppe horse archers, European knights whose entire social class was defined by owning and riding a horse. Mobility meant you arrived first, hit hardest, and left before anyone could answer. Mobility built ruling classes. So flight makes you the aristocracy, right? No. And this is where the whole thing inverts, because a horse gives you speed with cover. You ride behind the hills, through forests, at night. A flying human has none of that. The sky is the only environment on Earth with no terrain, no shadow, no walls, nowhere to hide. You are a warm, slow, unarmored object against an empty background, visible for kilometers, moving at maybe 50 or 60 kilometers an hour. Meanwhile, the people on the ground have gravity, cover, numbers, and the ability to carry weight, which you gave up to get off the ground. Anything thrown upward is cheap. Anything flying is expensive. Now let's be honest about what we don't know, because a lot of this is estimate rather than fact. The wingspan and muscle numbers are extrapolations from birds, and biology doesn't always extrapolate cleanly. Whether Argentavis could truly flap its wings, or only soar, is genuinely unresolved. The idea that hollow bones make birds light is also more complicated than it sounds. Bird skeletons aren't necessarily a smaller fraction of body mass than ours. The bones are thinner walled, but denser. That's a different trick than simply being lighter. And the social predictions are the softest part of all. History gives us patterns, not proofs. What's solid is the physics. The square cube law isn't an opinion. The energy cost of flapping flight isn't an opinion. Everything downstream is reasoning, and reasoning can be wrong. Here's what everyone gets backwards. We assume flight means freedom. Every myth we have says so. Icarus, angels, every dream you've ever had about lifting off the ground. But run the actual numbers. And flight produces the most controllable human being who has ever existed. You can't carry cargo, so you can't trade independently. You can't carry weapons of any weight, so you can't fight. You need 6,000 calories a day, so you cannot feed yourself. Someone has to. You're visible from every direction at all times, so you can't hide, organize, or disappear. And you're physically weaker than a ground human, because every gram of body mass you'd have spent on strength went into wings instead. You are fast, visible, hungry, and unable to carry anything except messages. That's not a ruler. That's a courier. That's a servant with the world's most efficient leash. Because whoever controls the food controls whether you can fly at all. The flying humans wouldn't have owned the sky. They'd have been sent into it. And then here's the thing that should genuinely bother you. We didn't get wings, we built aeroplanes instead. And we did every single one of these things anyway. We turned the sky into the most heavily regulated space on the planet. Every cubic meter of airspace above your head is owned, controlled, licensed, and monitored. We built radar to see everything in it. We built weapons specifically to bring things down out of it. And the very first thing we did, once we could reliably reach cities from above, was destroy them. We never needed the wings. The wings were never the point. The first human to fly died from breathing. Everyone after him died from what we built to bring him down.